everyone. Welcome to our June webinar series. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a wonderful presentation for you presented by our very own Zoeh Arana, entitled My Child Came Out, Now What? A little bit about Zoe. She has an associate's degree in Christian education, an associate's degree in early childhood education, and a bachelor's in communications. She has a background in community service, focusing on Latin and immigrant communities, and she is currently working on her master's in organizational leadership. She has a passion for authentic communication and making meaningful connections with people. She is also a foster parent and an adoptive parent. Favorite quote is from Nelson Mandela: "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived, it is what difference we have made to the lives of others." Without further ado, I will pass it over to Zoe for her presentation.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Good morning. I appreciate your presentation to me. And I want to say hi to everybody that's going to be listening to this webinar. If it is good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, to the sound of my voice, I just want to say welcome. This is a safe space to talk about something so important as parenting. And this is a very special subject close to my heart. Parenting is close to my heart regardless, but I want to have this webinar as like a light conversation with another parent. And I want to start by sharing my screen and going into my presentation, if I can find it. And please bear with me because technology is not my friend very much. Can you see my screen now? Is it okay now, Whitney?
Yes.
Okay. So the title of this presentation or this webinar is My Child Came Out, Now What? And I just want to say before we start that this presentation is for children who are already adults and not really like underage, because I know that we have to make that difference. Nowadays, children are coming out younger and younger. But this presentation is for children above the age of 14 or 15, when they're still in the adolescent years and they're a little confused still, and they come out to us, right? And we're gonna explore all the little details that we probably miss as parents, but we're gonna learn from them and see how we can move on. That's why the presentation is called Now What? What do we do after that, right? And we're gonna explore as much as we can of the many things that we can do and helping our children. I should say first that I am a parent of a child who's member of the LGBTQ community, and I didn't know that. And so the first thing I should say is that when we are parents, we think we know everything about our kids. It's, especially if we are open-minded and we have open conversations with them, and we consider ourselves to be cool parents, and then all of a sudden we realize that we don't know everything, right? And the first thing that happens is the first thing that we have to understand that it is important for our kids or our children to come out. People say nowadays but why is that important? Like, who cares what you do? And it doesn't matter what you do, it's how you accept yourself. But for kids, it's important to come out, especially to people so significant to them as parents, because they have this guilty feeling inside, and they feel unlovable and uncared for and not deserving of love, because they feel like they're deceiving their parents. And so this is innate in them, and they fight not to have this conversation with us, right? They have this these horrible ideas, these nightmares of, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And they go into severe depression, severe anxiety, just thinking about it, just wondering about it, and they wonder and wonder and wonder about it for long, long times, and they suffer in silence. And that is why it is important for them to come out to parents. They feel a release when they come out. I have the experience of my brother-in-law, right, who is also, he's gay, and it was hard for him to even express himself when he came out to me. It was like a while back, and I never put one together. But he was much younger than me, and when he did, the first thing that I saw, like, I need to speak to you. He kept saying, I need to speak to you. I need to speak to you. And okay, and like I said, we always think that we're very open-minded and we care so much, and everybody feels so comfortable with us. But these are topics that's why it's important to listen to webinars like this, or have this conversation with other parents, because it's not always as we think, right? We sometimes are deceived ourselves. We deceive our own selves. And I remember that first example I'm giving you is my brother-in-law, and I was like, no. And he was shaking, he started sweating, and oh my gosh, what is it? What happened? I thought he had gotten a girl pregnant, and the worst things kept coming to my mind. And finally he closed his eyes really tight, and he said, well, I like men. He didn't say I'm gay. He said, I like men. And I did not know how to respond. Mind you, he's not my son, but he is my brother-in-law. And the first thing was disbelief, right? And that's usually the first stage of this conversation when they come out to us, is disbelief. They're like, no, really, no. Yeah. And then you see them being there looking at you, like, with their truth, with their feelings out and about. And you're there like, really, no. And I remember there was like a quiet, awkward pause, and I looked at him and I saw so much pain in him, that I was like, okay, it's okay. Not really that I suddenly believe, it's just that I understood that, you know, this was his truth, that I might have not seen it, and that it was important for me to know. He felt it was important for me to know. Same thing applies to kids, or to our children, right? Adult children. Then after that disbelief stage, we go into the bargaining stage. It's like, okay, maybe. And if we are parents, we start saying, oh, did I do something wrong? What did I do wrong? And then you start going into your head thinking, oh my gosh, was he abused? And you start seeing all the many bad things that could happen, and trying to find a reason to what you've done wrong, and try to bargain with them, like, and the first thing that comes out, this probably is just a stage, especially if we're talking about adolescents, right? Young kids. And then we start going, oh, okay, maybe it's just a stage, this will pass, the same way he wanted to be a superhero when he was little. All of a sudden, this is gonna go away. This is the bargaining stage. And our children hear that all the time, right? And then there's other parents that react differently to this conversation, and they just confirm it, and they go like, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it when you were little. I knew it that you had, these tendencies. And so statistically, they said, the statistics say that children who hear that from their parents get angry. They rather have the parent who doesn't believe it, or the one that starts bargaining, because when they hear that I knew it, they feel like betrayed. Like, they feel as if the parent let them suffer in silence when they could have done so much more. Like, they could have open communication. And that's what the statistics say. So if that's the case, if this happens to any parents who's listening, and your child wants to have this conversation, like, try as much as possible to just listen and just be in the present moment, because all these stages is going to happen here in your head. But try to just listen, right? And we're going to go into more detail as we move on to the presentation, but these are some of the stages that happen. And I said I experienced that with my brother-in-law, because he was the first experience I had, and he didn't want to say anything to my husband. Mind you, we are Hispanic, of that very machista culture, like, you know, men are men, and, you know, like and then on top of that, he grew up in a very Christian home, and, you know, we are of the Christian faith. So it was, you can understand the difficulty that, or that brave, you need to be brave to have that done, right? For him to have done that with me. And I kept his secret for a little bit. So I'm gonna move on with that story later on, and I have other ones to share, but that's the first thing that you should know. Like, when they wanna have the conversation, these are some of the stages the parents can go through, right? But bear in mind, this is part of life, part of being a human, and part of being a parent. The next slide is, I want to show the perspective of the kids. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, we have two perspectives, right? The child and the parent. And I'm going to show both perspectives here. But in here, I wanted to show you, especially to the immigrant community.
As the kid of immigrants, it can be scary thinking, you know, this part of me is different, and what if it changes the way that they see me?
My God, I was so scared. All throughout elementary school, middle school, and high school, I thought something was wrong with me.
We all have this idea of what gay looks like, and some people, when I walk on the streets, people won't look at me and think gay. I think that's been the hardest part, to kind of feel valid in my own gayness.
I had feelings for guys. I repressed them, but it comes out eventually. My parents struggled a lot in Vietnam. Even just trying to come to America, it does have a factor in how difficult it was for me to come out. My parents both grew up in Mexico. My mom, she's very religious, from a very conservative family. I want to have a life that makes them happy. I didn't want to impose that on my parents at all. I didn't want to stress them out.
My parents were both from Karnataka, India. One of the biggest things that you think about and talk about and base your decisions on is reputation. So when I came out to my mom, her immediate concerns were, what will the family think?
As an immigrant, she came here to the United States with, she had 2 suitcases and
$200 in my pocket.
She would be a natural fit to understand what it means to make happiness on my own terms, or challenging my parents' idea of what happiness means in my life.
The way I kind of approached it was like, this is my girlfriend, you know? I kind of knew it. I felt something, I knew it. So I was not surprised.
My dad immediately was like, really? He's like, I had no idea.
The sentiment she expressed was, I'm sorry that this is going to make your life harder for you because of other people. It was never, I'm disappointed in you. It was always, I want you to have everything you deserve, and this might be a block.
They were furious. They felt like they couldn't trust me anymore. And because of that, I felt like I couldn't trust them anymore, because I had just dropped, my deepest, darkest secret to them, and they did not take it well at all.
My mom started to cry, and she said, well, I know a lot of depressed people that became gay, and I think you're gay because you haven't been going to church the last 4 years.
My mom hired a family therapist in hopes of getting me to reconsider being gay.
I was like, I'm not going to change who I am. She's like, you're a bad person. The person that should be giving you unconditional love is telling you you're a bad person. And my mom said that. And I broke, and I was just like, fine. You don't have to have a son who's gay. You don't have to have a son at all. I'm leaving this house. You don't ever have to see me again. My dad's like, you will not leave this household, and he blocked the door. And then they all came and hugged me, and they were like, we love you, please stay. And I just started crying.
I didn't want to hide this from my mom until I'm 40 and go to her saying, meet my fiance. I'd like to get married someday. I want my grandparents and cousins and aunts and uncles to come.
Since I came out to my mom, I think that she understands me on a deeper level.
There was one night where she said, Andrew, don't date jerk guys. And I'm like, okay, Mom.
A couple pieces of advice that I would give is, make sure you're ready. Make sure you are prepared for the worst reactions, because sometimes they do happen.
Coming out is still, in some parts of the country and in many cultures, a very difficult thing to do.
Just accept it for yourself first. and then don't worry about everyone else. Just accept it.
If you are struggling to come out to your parents, reminding yourself that you are worthy of love and perfect the way you are, I have a lot of faith in the fact that your reminder will actually be from your parents.
It's a growing and learning process for both the parents and the person who's coming out.
For those of you who are still in the closet, just have hope.
Just know that you're worth it.
That's what kept me going.
Love you, Mom.
Love you, Sarah.
Oh, I wasn't expecting to get so feeling. That was so many.
So that video, in many ways, you can hear or experience the perspective of the children, right, coming out, because you can see why and how they felt so nervous. And I wanted to show this video mostly because it's for immigrant parents. So we come to this nation, and I am speaking as an immigrant, right, and a daughter of immigrants, right? We come to this nation, and there's so many cultural things that rule your life. And that is why I think it's harder than any other parents, the ones that are immigrants, because parents have so much expectations in their kids when they come here. So the children feel that they're going to disappoint the parents so much just by being who they are, who their identity is. You know, mind is so heavy. The parents that we show in the video, or that were shown in the video, right, were so open-minded. The ladies were so spoken and kind and accepting of their kids. I think it should be that way, but not everybody is like that. As I used to work at a college campus, I would experience one student who came out to his father and his mother, stepfather and mother, and he told me the day before that he was going to do that next day. So the next day, around 10 o'clock, right, he came in and he had a laundry bag with all his belongings. His mother decided to put him on the street when he came out the day before. So then I realized, I wondered, so how is it that parents can react that way? I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that many people react that way. Number one, for ignorance, right? I don't know what happened. I wasn't there when the student came out to the parents. How was the conversation? What did he say? Or what did they say? I know that at the end of the day, to this day, that student is still experiencing homelessness, right? And it's only because of his identity. His family did not embrace him or accept him, right? And we need to prevent that from happening. We need to become more understanding of what unconditional love means in this, especially in this theme, right? And so let's move on to because what? Because they're still our children. If I were to explain that, it's like if you had, animals have offsprings too, right? And they love them unconditional. They go and they fight, they lions defend their cubs, and that's innate in nature. So the same thing goes to being a parent. They're still our children. Nothing has changed. Like, that child is the same child you had when you gave birth, the one that grew up, the one that had funny stuff, the one that you had to discipline. It's the same child. It's just that they have something in them that might be different. And the many things that happen with parent is that they, number one, they want to be protected of the kids, and then immediately they think, oh my gosh, they're going to suffer so much. Oh my gosh, you're so different. Oh, life is going to be so hard, and probably it's going to be a little bit harder. I don't know. It's changing now. But some parents don't want to. They don't want to see their kids being from that community because they don't want them to suffer rejection, right? And that's why they tend to be a little protective, and they're responding to those stages that I mentioned before. And some parents, they just feel like the lady on the video said, what are people going to think? How are we going to look after this? But if you can take something from this presentation, from this webinar, is that they are still your children. It is like we say in Spanish, right? Our kids are going to be our kids when they are like really old, when they're in jail, when they're when they're homeless, that they're still our kids. They came from us. They are the extension of us. And we have to come to that understanding and have the understanding necessary to embrace them as our children, because whatever it is that they say, they're still going to be our children. It is sad that I had to bring up the story of that student, but that story, I saw it, like nobody told me about it. I saw how much he suffered after that reaction. But he made that conscious decision and he said, I'm going to leave, do whatever I'm going to leave, but I'm not going to continue to hide who I am. And that is important, because that we can say to our kids as parents that was brave. They're brave enough to come out and say that to us. So such an important thing, right? And that what we just saw was the perspective of why kids and how kids feel when they come to their parents. The second video that I want to show you is the perspective of parents. Most of these parents are not immigrants, right? And the ones that I'm going to show in the video, but they're mostly of American descent, of like Anglo, but it shows how parents see and perceive this conversation and this lesson in life, right? And the name of the video is Lessons of Love, Family with Two Gay Children. So this is how this family reacted to these amazing circumstances that are happening. So I just want you to see their perspective.
Today marks the day where I do one of the gayest things I've ever done. Yes, gayer than that time I was 10 and one half of a Sonny and Cher cover band. Here at Newsy, we're launching a new series titled Let Me Get This Straight, where we'll bring you a range of stories from the LGBTQ community.
Does that sound gay?
And on National Coming Out Day, we are heading to Mascoutah, Illinois, a single stoplight town outside of St. Louis, Missouri, and home to these American heroes who know a thing or two about witnessing a walk out of the closet. Meet my parents.
All three of our kids have got different personalities.
What he means is one is a lesbian, one isn't a lesbian, and one is gay. That's me. What was the biggest sign?
I just didn't see you, in a committed relationship with a woman.
Weird, he'd think that. My parents were sent down a same-sex street less traveled and admit their first go-around at acceptance for my older sister wasn't ideal.
Ashley, in her teen years, I think she was trying to tell me, Dad, people don't choose to be gay. You're born that way. But I kind of contested her, and I challenged her, and that was wrong of me.
We probably didn't handle it right initially. But like you said, getting educated, being smart, and just through talking and loving our children, we have better support system. And
how do you think you handled it differently with me?
Our eyes were open more to see the signs and to understand what was going on. I mean, I think we were just waiting for you to tell us.
We've accepted it. I go back, harken back to what I still want for you. I'm not going to just say happiness, because life's a grind. And that's always been my concern with you guys being gay. Is it going to be a tougher grind? Yes, probably, and the least you need is lack of support from Mom and I. This needs to be a safe place. And when you come home, you need to know that you're loved unconditionally.
What would you tell a parent who maybe has reservations that their kid just came out to them?
Let's call it what it is. It's tolerance. We need more tolerance. Communicate.
Love them unconditionally. Don't ostracize them and don't lose connection with them, because it's very important to them.
So if it helps one kid or one parent, let them know they're not alone. And parents are frightful to come out and say, I have two gay kids. But back to what your mom said, loving you unconditionally.
I don't care who you love, it's just that you have love in your life.
We're working on it.
I think it takes a real open mind and progressive mind. I think our true friends will understand, but there'll be some people there that will watch this interview that really don't know my children or me from Adam, and they'll already stereotype us.
But don't you think there's room just to kind of say, those people?
Well, that's why I'm here. Because my kids are the most important thing to me. But watch your language.
For Newsy, we're the LeGros.
And so you see here, I like that video so much because it's so much different than perspective of other parents. This family had 2 gay kids. They were able to practice with the first one and came to the understanding that they didn't handle it very well the first time. And then they were ready for the second one. I don't know how would I handle that situation, and I'm pretty sure nobody can because everybody's different, right? I don't know if we were looking for signs in order to understand that. But the one thing I do know, and that's what I want to encourage here, is that love is unconditional, right? And many people who are of the Christian faith would say, well, the Bible does this and does that. And mind you, again, I'm of the Christian faith, but there's one thing in the Bible that Jesus says, right? He says, who, if your child asks you for bread, would give them a stone or will give them a rock, right? And that right there is unconditional love. And so when we have that conversation, when our child comes out to us and says that, mom and dad, I'm gay, I'm queer, right? What's next? The first thing that should be next is knowing, one, as I said before, they are still your children, and two, we're here to learn and listen, right? Learn and listen because we are here for you. The same way this guy has said, well, life is tough up there. It's tougher when you are gay, but you do need support. And that's why we are their parents. That's why we were sent from heaven, from wherever it is that you believe, from the universe, to be their parents. And that is our job, to be unconditional, loving, and caring. We don't mind. You don't have to agree with everything. We don't, most of the times. But we do have to come to the understanding that we have to have unconditional love for our kids, right? So that's the second lesson. First lesson is like listen, right? Listen attentively and come to the understanding that they're still our kids. They're still our children, the same. And second is to love unconditional or unconditional love, right? And it is a journey, right? When I say that, it's not that the conversation happens, your children came out and everything's said and done and we're cool and then I'm the coolest parent. That's absolutely not the truth. It is a journey. It is LGBTQ plus young people are not inherently prone to suicide because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, but rather placed at a higher risk because of how they're mistreated and stigmatized in society. So the question would be, would you rather have a dead son or would you have a gay son, right? If they suffer so much, right, then it is our job to be their support system, to feel safe, right? For them to be able to say, I'm gonna go home now. I have people to care for me when I go home. So we alleviate all that pain that they go through. And again, I'm gonna repeat it again, there are children and they still are who we are supposed to love unconditionally. And it is amazing to me how people say, oh, they killed themselves, but it's not because they felt bad for their identity, but rather because of how they were treated by society. And that can be prevented for our kids and for us to become the parents that need to be for that person at that time. Right? And no one is perfect. Our imperfections make us who we are. As parents, we can never be perfect, but love is perfect. Unconditional love is perfect. And here is the time when I want to share you my story, right? Besides the stories that I share with you, my personal stories of my brother-in-law, the student that I saw suffered in so much pain, I would like to share with you the story of my daughter, right? I only have one daughter. I couldn't have any more kids. In my heart, I had 1,000. Right? But I only was able to have one daughter. And I could never expect anything that she was of that community. And she was 14, I think almost 15, And how it happened, it was I was walking into her room, and she was actually close to the closet, like she was cleaning her closet. And I came in and I said to her, no, there's this movie. And I was telling her about this movie of a guy who used to be gay and all of a sudden changed. But it was just, I was just sharing a movie. My daughter is an artist, right? She went to school for artists, and she loves movies. And so we always discussed movies and what it mean, because that's her passion. And then suddenly she turned to me and she started grabbing her hands like that and grabbing her clothes really tight, and turning very nervous. And I said, what is it? And then she said, Mom. And I said, what? And then I wasn't paying much attention, because I was, looking at the mess she had in the bed. And then I said, Mom. And I said, what? She said, Mom, I am that. I am that. And I said, what are you? And I got closer and closer, because I saw her tears coming down her cheeks. And I got closer and I said, what is it? And then she's like, Mom, I am that. And that's all she kept saying. So I hugged her. To this point, I didn't know what she meant, right? But I know that I walked in talking about the movie. But she said, I am that. And I hugged her. And she said, no, don't hug me, because you might change your opinion. And she said, Mom, I am gay. I am queer. She used the word queer, which at that moment I didn't know what that was. And I was like, really? And all those stages I just shared with you came into my head. I was like, really? But kept my silence. Mind you, I speak a lot. And she's like, yes. And she's like, should I go? Don't tell my dad. And, am I going to be thrown out of the house? Like, where am I going to go? And she went into a panic for a little bit, and just hugged her. And I said, are you sure? And I kept asking, are you sure? Are you sure? Because I didn't see that in her in any way, shape, or form. And she was very unique. Her hair was always dyed in blue, and she was very unique. But I never saw that coming. And then I started thinking, and I said, hon, I love you. I don't know what this is, right? I don't know how to handle it. I really don't even know what we're talking about. The one thing I do know is that I love you, and I love you unconditionally. And those words came out of my mouth just by instinct. I wasn't thinking. I just had my daughter in tears, and I didn't really think of what I was saying. It was just my motherly instinct when that happened. Like later on, we started talking about it. I came back to her room the day after I came from work, and we started talking. She was calmer. And she said, I thought, I was going to be thrown out of the house, and I didn't know how you're going to react. And I thought you were going to hate me. I feel so dirty. And for years, my daughter shared with me, for years, she felt dirty, unwanted, unliked, hated by church people, because she heard messages like that by church folks, right? Which is, I'm not even going to go there, but not with me, right? And then I went into the stage of bargaining. I was like, wow, how did this happen? Like, when did you know? And I had all these questions. She didn't want to share everything. That was long ago, right? That was long, long ago. She didn't want to share anything. I kept her secret. I did not share that with her dad until I didn't, until it was time for him to know. And his reaction was a little different than mine, but still loving and caring for her. And she then had to teach us the many things that we don't know about the community, the letters, the many things that nowadays are part of that community. And I don't regret that. I am very well known in the community, very well known in the church community. And I could sit here and say my truth happily, saying that I love my daughter unconditionally. And that is the reason why she is better mentally. And I kept thinking for a long time, why would she be in so much pain if she could always come to me? But there's this thing that happens to kids, that they feel so bad about themselves, and that they feel that the doors are closed with their parents, and that should stop. Like, we should be able to embrace them and open the doors of our hearts always for them. And I say that I put this quote here because I started thinking that I did things wrong for months, I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? You know, and I tried to figure out. I asked her a bunch of questions, but you know, we are parents, and she kept saying, "No, Ma, you didn't do anything wrong." You know, and she tried to explain 1,000 times, "Ma, you're all right." Um, but I understood that I'm not perfect, and nobody is perfect, and that, but we do love perfectly, right? And that's how I managed to love my people, my daughter, my brother-in-law, the students that I knew were gay and couldn't come out to their parents whenever I worked in a college campus. I know and understand that. That's why I have so much passion of having meaningful connection with people, because sometimes people have so much difficulties at work. I mean, a home, that whenever they show up and you are able to give them a good word of encouragement, and that goes for our kids too. So to the answer to the question, my child came out, now what? These are the three answers I would give you, right? Just know that we're gonna make mistakes, that sometimes we're gonna get them angry because we don't get the things that, you know, I guess we were supposed to know in this modern time. And but the one thing that stands big here is unconditional love, right? And that was my story. What I just shared with you was the story of me and my daughter. She is now 25. She still has issues with her, whatever those memories, whenever she felt unwanted by church folks. And she is still dealing with that. But she does know that she has a safe place at home, that she can talk to me, that she can speak her dreams and her desires with me, right? Because her being queer, because she says that she's queer, her being queer does not make a barrier between her mother, her father, and her. We are always gonna love her. And I advise anybody who's looking at this webinar, whoever is listening to my voice, and if you're going through this and you don't know what to do, and then you probably are confused as a parent and you're wondering, what should I do? What are people going to say? The same questions we just discussed, or we just talked about. If you have those questions, just come back to the answers. They're still your kids. You can still love them unconditionally. And that's it. Life is short. So, you know, everybody's going to find their path in life. And the one thing that we should know is that we are parents for a reason, that we should be able to support them. It is hard and it's not easy, because all the things that came out in this webinar, like how you want to be protective of them, how you want to care for them and not hurt them. And at the same time, the guilty feeling of like, I didn't protect them enough, I didn't open my door enough. All of those things are going to come into your head, right? But at the end of the day, they are still our kids, and they're going to write their own story as we write ours, right? And that is it. Thank you so much for listening. And if you can take anything from this presentation, is that, right? It's not the end of the world. It's rather to have a live gay person, a lesbian daughter, right, than to have them dead, or to have them suffering in silence or hiding from you. Rather, open your hearts, open your arms, embrace them, love them unconditionally, because they are still our kids. Thank you so much.
If you would like to see more of NJ4S Union Hub's programming, you can follow us on social media at NJ4S Union. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you are interested in any of our upcoming programming, you can go to nj4s.nj.gov, and you can go to the public offerings page to see upcoming programming. And if you're interested, if you're a community member or part of a community organization, and you're interested in having a presentation like this for your community organization, you can reach out to us at NJ4S Union at preventionlinks.org. That's capital N, capital J, the number 4, capital S, capital U, NION at preventionlinks.org. Thank you, Zoe, for this amazing presentation as a part of our June webinar series, Taking Pride in Our Mental Health, where we'll be covering topics related to the LGBTQ community and men's mental health for the month of June.